Shut the doors in the back, please. I hope everyone had a yummy lunch. Hasta Nakshatra, 10 to 23.2 Virgo, moon, Surya in the hand or palm. You know, the Dharma of this Nakshatra is, I think it's one of the more misunderstood. You know, the open hand, right? What are we offering? So much to give, so much to offer. The Hasta is a wealth of information, right? You need someone to give you some information on something. Hasta's the person to ask. They are always, the Dharma of the Hasta Nakshatra is to seek knowledge. They're the perpetual student, right? So there is a dharmic vibration of Hasta, which is, I've learned enough, I have nothing more to learn, right? I've yearning for knowledge. I've kind of done some investigation as to what I'm looking for, and I'm good. That's the A Dharma. So this beautiful dharmic vibration of Hasta is, there's always more to learn, right? I mean, as a student of Jyotish, no matter if you're, you know, KP or Nadi or Parashara, all these beautiful different forms of astrology, we become so fixated, right, on our specific type, right? And then we look at another form of astrology and there's like, okay, this is totally ruining my understanding of how things work, right? To continue to seek knowledge, even when the knowledge that we're seeking contradicts that which we already know. That's Hasta. I always say this as well for the Dharma of Hasta. A wasted mind is a wasted life, right? The Hasta Nakshatra native has this Dharma of this beautiful intellectual capacity, right? So what a waste to not use it. I mean, even modern medical science has showed us that when we don't use our intellectual faculties, they cease to function properly, right? We live in a world where, you know, dementia in its different forms are rampant. The Hasta Nakshatra native is vulnerable to dementia. But that comes from not using it, right? From that idea of I have enough information, I don't need any more. The Hasta energy, there's a strong dharmic focus on the family, right? This open palm, they would let their family members, they'd let their loved ones eat off of it. They have so much to offer in terms of love and devotion. But as much as the Dharma of the Hasta Nakshatra native is to show an open palm, I also like to say it's to show a closed fist. Right? Life is a two-way street. Life is a reciprocation of energy. Right? I mean, how often have we been in business relationships, romantic relationships, any type of, you know, agreement or interaction with someone where it just feels it's not an equal exchange? That's why in Jyotish we have the concept of Guru Dakshina, right? You know, to do a consultation and there be no exchange of energy, it corrupts the integrity of the Jyotisha. So there's these deep lessons of reciprocal energy, right? If I'm going to give, it needs to be reciprocated, right? So it's the Dharma is definitely to have this open palm, to offer, to give, to serve, right? But when that energy doesn't feel reciprocated, we close the fist. We must be protective. We must be defensive, right? If there's one thing I'm not going to jeopardize, it's my individual peace and sanity. So there's an energy exchange. And the one thing I want to say about the Dharma of the Hasta is it's not like tit for tat. It's not like, okay, I'm giving this and I need this specifically in return, right? It's not like, oh, I do a reading for someone and I need $270 for an hour, although that doesn't hurt. It's like, what am I getting back in return, right? Like the barter system, right? I mean, I have an Ayurvedic practitioner and I do consultations for him, and he does Marma and Abhyanga on me. We did an exchange, right? You gave me Marma. She's an incredible and talented Marma and Ayurvedic practitioner here. I highly recommend her services. You know, it's all about exchange, right? It doesn't have to be tit for tat. There's no measurement to the exchange, and sometimes that's part of the lesson of Hasta too, is you know, when we become so defensive about feeling like things are equal, that it's like we feel like we need this specific thing. It's like the dynamic in a family or in a romantic relationship. You know, oh, well, we need two people in the family to equally provide monetarily, right? That's not so true, right? One person could provide monetarily while the other person takes care of the family at home. Takes care, and it's not a gender thing, you know, stay-at-home dad's totally cool. You know, it's just this equal exchange of energy that's at the root of Hasta. You know, so just to conclude here, it's like that perpetual student energy of Hasta, we have to always remain teachable. Right? We're never so certain or so full of our way of looking at knowledge that we're not open to looking at things differently. Like I like to say, even if something contradicts your very belief system, you have an aversion to it. But the Hasta Dharma is to go towards that aversion and actually learn about it and investigate that thing which you're afraid to look into. So who here has Hasta? Sana? Hold on, we're going to get you the mic so the virtual attendees can hear you properly.
I have Mars K2 at 14 degrees in Hasta.
In which bhava? House?
Oh, fourth.
Mars in K2.
Gemini rising.
Mars in K2 in Hasta in the fourth. You know, that's like a very sensitive, caring energy, because that Hasta energy is naturally very giving. And then in the fourth house, it's like it just wants to give. And that has to do with your inner emotional energy being very Hasta. So on one side of the spectrum, there's this beautiful, matriarchal, motherly, giving, loving, serving energy. But then there's someone who's like easily taken advantage of, right? Someone who probably has a hard time showing that fist. You know, wants to extend their palm out as far as possible, you know, but by the what planets were there?
In the fourth, Jupiter, Mars K2.
Yeah, the Mars K2 combination there, it will create a lot of strength in your emotional peace and balance when you become more military about the protection of your own peace, you know?
I'm a body worker too. I work with my hands.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, there just needs to be a lot of energy kind of focused on what you give to other people, kind of taking that energy and not just giving it to yourself, but allowing other people to give you what you give to everyone.
Thank you.
Sure. Chitra Nakshatra. Chitra 23.2 Virgo to 6.4 Libra, Mars, Vishvakarma, and the Jewel. Chitra is a very action and energy oriented nakshatra. It's the catalyzer, it's the catalyst, right? Chitra is the one that it needs to go out there and accomplish things. It's the one that actually has to make the hard decisions, right? In order to have action and energy and to instigate actions that need to happen, we need to have motivation, right? The A Dharma of Chitra is like a very deflated person. Complacent, deflated, right? Wakes up in the morning and it's just like, oh, I don't have the energy to go into this day, right? Because they don't know what actions to take to kind of catalyze this process to oh, this is the thing that I want to start. This is the thing that I want to accomplish. And usually the Dharma for Chitra, that initial action that they take, it can be very Shiva-like, kind of destructive, right? So it's like the architect, right? From the Devata perspective, right? The one that builds, right? Well, before anything can be built, something must be destroyed, right? So there is actually a destructive, positive energy here, right? We're in this fight to Chitra Dharma, to grow and experience as much freedom as possible, right? And in order to experience freedom, we have to fight for it. We have to be willing to fight. It's like revolution, right? Like the French Revolution, right? All these people that are being oppressed by their society and their culture, it's going all over in the world right now, right? Oppression, people that are being held back from freedom from a political or governmental structure, right? And if everyone just was in that position and they were yeah, this is just the way it is and it's going to be this way forever, there would never be any change. It takes someone radical to take action and energy and go out there and start a revolution, right? The revolution is the solution. The real jewel of this nakshatra, the real dharma of this nakshatra is to transcend the caste or varna that you were born into, right? Because complacency is saying, oh yeah, I'm born in a Shudra caste, I'll just stay here forever, right? No, I wrote this article for the B.V. Raman's thing, and it was aggressive against the caste system. Right? Because the caste system, the way that it's set up, it creates a complacency. Oh, this is how you are, so you should marry this person in the same caste. And it keeps people oppressed and locked in these mental prisons for the entirety of their lifetime. So to take the difficult first action and to transcend your lot in life and to break free from whatever kind of social, government, political, authoritative constraints are being pressured onto you, that's the Dharma of Chitra Nakshatra. And sometimes you have to take drastic, aggressive, fierce actions in order to cause change, right? I've noticed a lot with this nakshatra, war, people like war leaders, people that have to, kill, right? Of course, we have the principle of nonviolence, right? And violence is never the solution, right? But when it comes to freedom, it's a part of it. So at least in the time that we live in, right? So if you're a Chitra Nakshatra native, I want you to meditate on what are your chains that are holding you in bondage, right? Is it your family business? Is it the country that you live in? Is it the people that you interact with? What's holding you back from breaking free from jail, but not the physical jail, the mental jail, the spiritual jail that we all live in when we're just saying, yeah, this is the way things is, and this is how it's going to be, and fine, whatever, I guess I'll just accept it. No, like, you can't accept abuse. You can't accept limitation when your freedom is at stake. You know? So the Dharma of Chitra Nakshatra is to fight the good fight, the fight worth fighting for. Who has Chitra? Oh, did we do you? Yeah. Anyone else have Chitra?
So it's in my Ascendant, and I'm at 24 degrees. And then my Mars alongside my Ketu and Venus are in the 10th house.
So you're a Mars Chitra Ascendant?
So I'm a Virgo Ascendant at 24 degrees.
With Mars there as well?
Yes, and Ketu.
Okay. So that has Nakshatra dignity, right? You're naturally not someone to just be like, yeah, this is how it is, right? It is essentially part of who you are and your nature to grow and do whatever it takes to fight, right? And Ketu's involved in, and it's connected to the 10th house, right? So it's like, no one's going to tell you, oh, this is how your career is going to look. This is its final destination, right? This is the highest position you can get at in your job. Like, literally, your purpose is to, like, prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Let the haters hate. Swati Nakshatra. 6.4 to 20 degrees Libra, Rahu. We might be here a while. Vayu and Coral. You know, Swati, there's many different, like, the disperse, but it's like Swati, like, I look up all the translations and all the roots, and I did study Sanskrit for some years, and, like, one of my favorite translations of Swati is, like, awesome, amazing, special. It's, like, so misunderstood, right? They have a guna of sukshma, which is a subtle quality, right? They're very subtle energies, right? Which means they're magical, right? There's an inherent magic, right? I mean, I've even seen it in terms of, like, magicians and shamans and things like this that kind of work with things that can't be proven or that aren't tangible, right? This amazing, sukshma, you know, subtle energy, it is feared, right? Because we live in a time where if someone is special, everyone's jealous, right? Well, I wish I was special. And instead of empowering someone in their unique gifts, we want to rain on their parade, right? So on some dharmic level, this is a strong outsider energy. And it's very important to understand that the uniqueness of this position, it will create someone who's very, very special, and therefore other people will try to knock you down. And it's very dharmic to be like, not even let it, right? The vayu, the wind, just to let it flow right past you. Do not let these people affect you. You know, vayu is a very powerful devata here, right? Because I like to think of it as like a tornado or a hurricane, right? And they're destined for greatness, but with all the Rahu Nakshatras, there's a lot of confusion, right? Oh, like, I feel like this calling, like I have a special purpose, right? But like, I have no idea what it is. And there's a confusion that happens in that place because when we feel that innate energy of like, yeah, I have this like very meaningful purpose, but I don't know what it is, the mind will try to tell you what it is. But it's not something that your mind can tell you. It has to be revealed by God over time. So what I've noticed with the karma of this nakshatra is a lot of times like the goals, the dreams, the aspirations of the Swati individual, they'll like think, oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to live here for the rest of my life. I want to, be with this person for the rest of my life. Like whatever it is, the mind tries to be like, yeah, this is exactly how my life should go. But then Swati is like this tornado, and what it'll do is if that thing that you think is your path or purpose is not, the hurricane will come and knock you right on your ass. And then what happens is you're like, well, either A, that thing that I was going to is not possible anymore, or it's not desirable. So then it's like back to the drawing board, and that's a big theme of the Swati is like back to the drawing board, back to the drawing board. It's really about trusting the universe, right? Because as much as we try to kind of determine the real dharma of Swati is like, okay, I know what my path is, and I'm going to make a bunch of decisions that that I can't go back on. You actually have this in your chart. And when you make those decisions that you can't go back on, that makes, when you realize that these like serious life decisions that you've made are like, have permanent effects, you're like, it teaches you, oh, I really shouldn't make any like dramatic decisions anymore that have like long-term consequences. I should really just be in the moment and kind of flow like the wind, like Lord Vayu. So instead of trying to like, the real dharma of this nakshatra is just to live in the moment. But in the dharma, it's so focused on the future tripping, the future. I'm so certain that this is how things are going to look for me, and there's just like painful experiences that come from like going in that direction. So my remedies for this is like follow your heart's passion on a daily basis, right? What your bhakti, what your devotional space is being called to on a daily basis. It might have nothing to do with how you think your life is going to look 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, even tomorrow. But if you're able to be true to yourself and follow your heart's passion in the moment on a daily basis, that's the dharma of Swati. So it's really about surrender, right? It's really about the dharma is the controlling energy. This is how I want my life to look, so I'm going to make some serious decisions to kind of control how it's going to unfold. And it's like, that just creates karmic retribution. So there's really this, the main energy is just, live in the moment, surrender to the divine, and then that awesome energy of Swati, it will put you in a position where it's like, you're living a life beyond your wildest dreams. But in order to, accelerate and improve that karma, try not to make like long-term decisions about the future. Just try to be in the moment so that awesome energy can reveal itself at the time that it's right. Who here is a Swati? Do you know your Swati position?
Jupiter.
And it's your 9th house, right? Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's your Jupiter's in the 9th. Oh.
I have moon in Swati at about 1755 maybe, and then I have Mercury too there.
In which house?
7th.
Moon, Mercury, Swati, 7th?
Yeah, with the Mars Aries in the first retrograde.
Swati in the 7th house. It's like, how I would understand that energy for you is that like, it makes relationships for you, not just romantic, but all relationships, very temporal. Because the way that the universe is going to show you where you're at in your life based on your relationships at that time. But all that Swati energy is causing a lot of rapid growth and change throughout your lifetime. So people are going to come and go, And it creates a very, very deep energy of where you're at in your life, especially because remember, this is like this magical energy. So it has to do with like where you're at in terms of this is one of the nakshatras that has the most occult or esoteric potential, right? The Siddhi, this is a Siddhi nakshatra, right? You want a spiritual gift, tough at this time, but if you have this position, you can unlock it. And so for you in your chart, certain people in your life, based on where you're at in your spiritual progress, they're there to help kind of facilitate that growth. But then when you're ready to get to your next stage in your life, Swati will eradicate them. So you will either have a great amount of pleasure in your life from your ability to say, see you later, or a great amount of pain when you try to hold on to those things and those people that don't serve you anymore. Vishaka, 20 Libra to 3.2 Scorpio, Jupiter. It's Indra Agni. I like to use Indra and the archway. To be brilliant, to shine, the source of light, right? This is even a more outsider vibration than Swati, right? It's probably the most outcast of the nakshatras. And they have a dharma which is going to be outside of society's conforms, right? They're going to have an energy where their purpose, their path, is not something that's going to be found within the modern constraints of society, right? So their dharma is to rebel. Their dharma is to not conform, right? So the a-dharma is conforming to other people's wants and needs and saying, instead of embracing this aspect of me, which is kind of an outsider, I'm going to conform to what you want me to be, right? And then that ray of light, which is so strong in Vishaka, has no opportunity to shine. How is Agni unlocked? It's from saying, I am an outsider, right? I call this the let your freak flag fly nakshatra, right? Wave it up in the air. Say, I'm weird, and that's a good thing, right? This is my moon and Venus conjunction nakshatra in the same degree in my 9th house. Very Vishaka person, right? So the Agni is literally unlocked, this strength, this power, this brilliance, when we're like, you know what? I prefer to be strange, right? I've always felt this way. It's the normal people that are weird. Right? So that's one side of it, is the anti-conforming versus finding your true self. There's another side of the extreme. This is one of those nuanced nakshatras, right? When the dharma is so strong to anti-conform and rebel, we have this desire to rebel against everything, which can sometimes mean rebelling against what's best for you. You rebel against yourself, right? You rebel just cause, right? It's like someone is there and they have really good advice. And they give you that good advice. Like my parents, throughout my life, they've given me a lot of good advice. But because this position was so strong, I was just I'm going to do the opposite, right? I remember there was this funny story. I got my driver's license, and it took like 3 or 4 times to get it. And I got my car, and I drove it to the beach, and I had all my friends with me, and I was in this really excited, ecstatic place. And my dad's like not the most spiritual person, but he says, I have a really bad feeling. He's like, I don't think you should drive right now. I think you should just leave the car parked. You know what I mean? I had my buddies, Kenny, and we were feeling excited, you know? And my dad's like, I just don't like your energy right now. It's not a good idea. I drove the car, and I didn't know at this point that you have to yield when you make a left-handed turn. So I make the left-handed turn, and this other car comes and just T-bones me within 10 minutes of my dad making that statement. My car was totaled. So it's just this innate energy of like, you know what, don't tell me what to do. And that energy, as Vishaka becomes more mature, it's like, you know what, I actually, instead of just rebelling against everything, I actually need to like be present and think about this thing that I'm being told or suggested to me. Is it in my best interest? Is it actually serve a utility? Does it actually serve some kind of purpose? So on one side of the A-Dharma, it's like conforming, but on the other side of this A-Dharma, it's like rebelling against everything. So there's this middle ground, which is like rebelling against the things that limit you, you know, but conforming to the things that are in your best interest, you know? And they really do seek wisdom, and they like to look outside of the box. They like to look outside of the box for things. I mean, Vishaka people, if they're into the Vedic sciences, they're usually into Jyotish and Vastu and, you know, Ayurveda, and, you know, they're into all sorts of things that kind of, you know, other people would go, that's weird, right? It's like, if it's weird and you're a Vishaka, you should probably look into it. So the real Dharma, once you embrace and find the balance of this nuance here, you become a leader, right? But you lead other outsiders, right? So you become in a position to lead, but you're only going to lead other weirdos. But no one wants to lead the normies anyway. They're no fun. So the real Dharma here is the freedom to be yourself and inspire others to also be themselves. Who here has a Vishaka?
You pick.
Yeah.
So I have retrograde Jupiter in Vishaka in the 5th, and I'm Gemini Ascendant, Punarvasu.
Retrograde Jupiter in Vishaka in the 5th.
Yeah.
You know, that's like a very bhakti energy, right? Jupiter in the 5th, right? And did you say Jupiter is?
Retrograde.
Retrograde, right. So it's like, you know, that's like a very bhakti yogi energy. But due to the Vakri state of the Jupiter, it's not going to go to the dogmatic side of the religion. It's going to, you know, because not only is you going to rebel from the Jupiter Vishaka, but also from the Vakri. So there's this very like, you know, I would say that whatever kind of religion that you believe in, it's kind of like your name with ism. It's your own version of the religion, right? Because it wants to take the certain rules and laws, and this is how it's supposed to be practiced. And it's like we were having a conversation, right? And I asked you about your Ishtadeva and all this stuff, and you're like, well, that was mine, but this is mine now. That's a perfect embodiment of it, right? It's the freedom to not be constrained of, oh, this is your Ishtadeva. It should be for your whole life. No, flow with it, man. Embrace this unique spiritual and religious calling. That's your path. It will allow you to inspire other people to also follow their spiritual truth.
Thank you.
Anuradha, 3.2 to 16 Scorpio. Now we're getting into the Scorpio Nakshatras. Shani, Mitra, and the Lotus. You know, Anuradha is like Anuradha, renewed beauty, renewed excellence, renewed prosperity, right? In order for something to be renewed, it has to stop working, right? So there's this energy here that has to do, this is a adversity nakshatra. This is what I call the grass is greener on the other side. But sometimes with Anuradha, it feels like, oh, I'm never going to get there. You know, the energy of it is seeking to transform you as a result of difficult experiences, right? So that you can regain your strength, so that you can regain your power, so that you can regain your energy, right? The symbol is the lotus, right? How does a lotus bloom? In the murky waters of a dirty swamp, right? This is the Anuradha, right? You start as a lotus, it doesn't look, it just looks, it's underneath the water. It just looks like there's dirt and muck and slop all over it. And then this beautiful lotus blossoms out of this murky water. So, you know, the real, you know, I've seen like PTSD is like, this is like, if you have this, you have spiritual PTSD, right? You have post-traumatic stress disorder, right? But those traumas, when you overcome them and get to the other side of it, it's like excellence. It's the Anuradha. It's the renewed beauty. It's the renewed excellence, right? It's like, you know, people who have life easy, right? They're not my kind of people. Right? Why is Mitra the Devata here, the Lord and God of friendship, right? Because a friend is someone who has empathy. A friend is someone who has compassion, right? If the friends that you want to have in life are the friends that have gone through pain and suffering and struggle, because they're actually going to be there for you. You know, there's this great line here. Bob Marley. Friends are like stars. You can only see them when it's dark out. Right? This is the Dharma of Anuradha, right? It's taking those difficult experiences that you have and utilizing them to be the best version of yourself so you can be the best person to all of your friends. Right? This is the perfect friend, right? The perfect friend that is just, they get it. You know, you have certain people in your life and you talk to them and you're just like, oh my God, you get me so much. They probably have Anuradha. You know, so the lotus blossoms from the swamp, and it creates this gratitude. The real Dharma of Anuradha is to have gratitude, right? But the issue is when that people have life easy, there is no gratitude, right? Because you don't know, you're entitled to everything. It create the a-dharma of Anuradha is entitlement, as well as being defeated by life's traumas, right? The real dharma of Anuradha is to transform those difficult experiences so that you can be grateful, right? So you can be in a position to have empathy for people, right? This is a relational nakshatra. It wants to hold space for people, right? This is the space holder, right? You know, we all have difficult experiences in life, and a lot of our friends, or the people we would choose to call friends, they're really just associates, right? Because when the going gets tough, they're gone, right? the Anuradha Dharma is that you're able to realize that those difficult experiences is what makes life. And it allows you to have so much integrity in all of your relational experiences with your friends. And Mitra wants to bless you. It's, this can create great wealth, right? But wealth is not money. Wealth is friendship, right? There's no greater wealth than good friends. And they're hard to come by. So that pain, that struggle, that trauma, that disappointment, that grief is the fertile soil which creates the lotus of the heart of the Anuradha person. Who here is Anuradha?
I have Venus and Ketus in the 10th house in Anuradha.
Oh, we were talking about this. Okay, Venus in Ketu in Anuradha.
10th house.
Yeah. So, the Ketu there, so it's interesting. So the Ketu there, they're both in Anuradha. The Ketu there will actually allow you to be very like the wealth side of things, will allow you like material success and like financial freedom like throughout your life and things like that. But the Venus in Anuradha is difficult, and the Venus Ketu is difficult. So it creates this energy where it's like that murky swamp for you is trying to find meaning through your career, right? To try to find something in your life that you can do on a daily basis that feels rewarding and nourishing, right? But because of the karma of that position, you're going to have to work a lot of jobs throughout your lifetime that are totally not. Eventually, what that's trying to do through Mitra is it's going to, when you finally do get, because the grass is always greener, goes two ways, right? A lot of people have like these great jobs, but maybe they got handed to them or whatever, so then they're not grateful for them. They still complain about them, right? I mean, how dare I complain of having a career as a Jyotish? That's like offensive, right? The whole energy here is when you finally get to your career, all those bullshit jobs and careers and things that you had in your life, they're going to make you so grateful for that career that you finally worked so hard to get to that it's going to be like, hallelujah, I can't complain about this. So it's making it difficult, but Shani's influence here, it delays, but it doesn't deny. So you will get to that career that you're really yearning, but you're gonna have to go through some struggle in that direction. Okay, Jyeshta. This will round out Scorpio, 16.4 to 30 degrees Scorpio, Mercury, Indra, and the amulet. Jyeshta is the chief, the elder, Indra, the chief of all the gods, right? A lot of people like to associate the Leo nakshatras with power and leadership, but this is there's a strong leadership vibration of Jyeshta too, right? The difference between the Leo nakshatra leadership positions and this one is they don't want to lead, right? Their dharma is to lead, right? But it's not coming from a place of ego. It's coming from a place of awakening your individual power, right? Jyeshta is a very strong power position. The energy of Jyeshta is when you unlock your own individual power, you learn to be true to yourself, right? You kind of learn to pioneer and go in your own direction to be the thing that you feel called to, right? So that means that you have to kind of go your own direction in order to lead. So the real dharma of this nakshatra position is to be true to yourself and lead by example, right? I like to say, keep your own side of the street clean, right? I mean, Jyeshta, it can turn, a lot of people are turned off by Jyeshta people because of the adharmic side of it, which is, I need to keep my side of the street clean, so clean yours. Right? It's, it's this, I have to do this, so you do too. Right? That's adharmic, right? It's saying, you know what? I just need to do my thing, right? It's like when someone, there's two sides of it, right? It's like revenge, right? This is a vengeful nakshatra. But that's adharmic, right? The idea is, I've been wronged, so I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to wrong you, right? It's like, a beautiful married couple and one of the partners cheats on their partner. Oh, well, they cheated on me, so I'm going to cheat on them. And it's like the dharma of this nakshatra is two wrongs does not make a right, right? It's like it's easy to double down when we feel harmed, right? But to rise to the occasion and still forgive those that have trespassed against us. Right, to be able to say, you know what, that's you, and I'm just going to be true and go to this higher vibration. That causes transformation, right? So the real dharma here, it's about character integrity, right? Practice what you preach. There's this lead by example energy, and that's easy to do when you're not being hurt. Right? Oh, yeah, like I can lead by example, but, as soon as push comes to shove, if I'm harmed, we have a human reactive nature. The lower side of this nakshatra is reactive, right? My sun, Mercury, Atmakarika is all here in the 10th, right? I can be very reactive. Dr. Harness will tell you I got in a little trouble with some of the faculty at times. Right? But it's all about saying, you know what? You have to be able to be true to the spiritual principles of integrity that you're trying to uphold without saying, well, other people need to be this way too. Right? I need to be kind. I need to be thoughtful. I need to be generous. I need to be considerate. I need to be respectful, even when I feel hurt, disrespected, not considered, unappreciated, right? There's a strong energy of Jyeshta, which is like adharmic, which is like, I feel underappreciated, right? And it's like, the best gifts come from not needing recognition, right? You don't do things because, oh, I need a pat on the back, although sometimes it does feel nice. But you do things because it's the right thing to do. Not because other people need to do them, not because, other people harm, it's always about this integrity. And I think that the real dharma of Jyeshta is, to find a cause that's worth fighting for and to serve it without recognition, right? So the adharma of this position is, I don't know what cause to fight. I don't know what my values are. So I'm just going to be reactive. But then the higher side of it is, oh my gosh, there's this divine cause and I just need to serve it without credit. Who here has a Jyeshta position?
If we can do online, that would be
Yeah, great.
Diana, she has 3 planets in Jyeshta. So it's Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter, and her ascendant is Capricorn.
Mercury, Mars,
Jupiter.
The Mercury's uncomfortable. And which house?
So it would be the 11th house.
The 11th house. That's the Mars and the Jupiter in Jyeshta is really nice. I mean, I love that. Yogananda, he had a Mars-Jupiter combination. really beautiful. I love the Mars-Jupiter combination because like Mars takes action, right? But Jupiter is lazy. So when Mars and Jupiter are together, it's like it puts the sattvic activities into action. That Jyeshta in the 11th house, all those planets, it's very community, right? It's this Indra, this person here, they're a leader. They have a karma to be the leader of their community, right? To be a leader of their friends, to inspire their friends, right? But the Mercury there, it's very uncomfortable. So the Mercury is like, well, these friends are doing what I, think they should do, but this friend hurt me, and so they're out of the circle, right? It's picky choosy, picking and choosing, right? And that's not keeping your side of the street clean, right? We have to learn to inspire other people and lead by example. So I think the remedy of this one is to, kind of not be so critical of the friends that may be on the outside of the group, to invite everyone within the community, So yeah. Mula Nakshatra, another one of those nakshatras that everyone's scared of. Ketu, Nariti, and the roots. So, my heart, my ruling planet is placed in this nakshatra. What's that? For me? Oh, the degrees. It's the first 13.2 degrees of Sagittarius. So, Mula means root, right? So then the question is, well, the Dharma is to get to the root of what really matters in life, which it's all about priorities. The A Dharma of Mula Nakshatra is not to have good priorities, right? The evolutionary spectrum over the course of the lifetime of the Mula is that the priorities become more and more refined, more and more pure, right? Life, a person can literally be measured by their priorities and how much integrity they have in their priorities. There is this concept of Nariti, the goddess of death and disease. And so one thing that I've noticed is that with Mula Nakshatra natives, they're very close to the concepts of death and disease. Nariti, the goddess, she holds a neem leaf in her hand, right? If you know Ayurveda, it's like one of the most strongest medications for many things, right? It's really it's antibacterial, it's antifungal. I mean, they spray it on plants to get the bugs away, right? So imagine what it does on your inside. The neem leaf is suggesting that disease and sickness is not just happenstance, it's karma, right? I had this client who had a very strong Mula position, and I think it was in the 8th house. He was going through activation, and she got diagnosed with cancer, right? The idea of this is that Nariti, who holds the neem leaf, which wards off disease, decided to take the leaf away, right? So she got sick, very sick, right? In this process of working with her cancer, she began to be very spiritual, and she started to really value certain things in her life, like her time with her family, right? She started to meditate. She started to spend time in nature. She started to really have the right priorities in life. The cancer's been gone. It can't be found anymore. So the idea is that when the cancer literally came to say, your priorities are not okay. If this is how you live life, you probably shouldn't even live it. But if you kind of get the message here, we'll take the neem leaf, we'll put it back, the cancer will go away. A lot of times the way that disease shows up in the life, it's not supposed to kill us. You know, we're afraid of death, so that's where the mind goes, but it's literally just it's like a teacher, right? It's a teacher. So, and that's with self-disease, but one of the things that this teaches us as well is the priorities as far as loss, right? You know, people joke, right? They say YOLO, right? You only live once. I say that's only true until reincarnation. But you're kind of living your life in this selfish way, you know, the mula, and so you're not prioritizing the things that really matter, right? So then great loss comes, great death comes, right? And it shows you what really matters. You know, I mentioned my brother, Julian, and so I have Mula in Saturn, my ruling planet, in the house of siblings. And I was going through my Saturn dasha, Rahu Antardasha. And my brother, he had always struggled with, you know, like addiction and heroin, and I've had a history of my own addiction issues. And there was a time there for a while where, you know, he was really, really struggling, and he would just, I think he kind of had this sense that, you know, he couldn't fight that much longer with it, that maybe he wouldn't make it that much longer. But, you know, like I was so into like this partying lifestyle of like going to music festivals and like hooking up with girls and just like being reckless, you know, that when he would reach out to me to spend time together, I would be like, I'm busy with like, you know, having a good time or spending time with this random woman, you know? And it was the summer of 2019, and he called me and he said, can we please just meet for dinner, you know? And I was like, I'm busy, you know? I'm busy. I had a new girlfriend. And a week later, I'm at a concert dancing with this woman, and I get like 12 or 15 calls on my phone, and I keep checking, and it's like ruining my buzz. And I pick up the phone, and I call my dad's there, and he's like, I'm standing over your brother's dead body. Right? You know? And Mula was just so heavily activated in my chart, you know? And I would give 5, 10, 20 years of my life back just to have that dinner with him. You know, I miss him so much. And, you know, it just woke me up to what really matters in life. Time with family, love, God, nature, right? Not these like hedonistic tendencies of pleasures. It did take me a while to get on my sobriety journey, but it did start it for me. You know, and so that's the teacher of Mula. It gets to the root of what really matters in life, which is literally just time with the people you love. That's it. That's all that matters. And Mula will teach you this, right? Disease is not here to kill you. It's to teach you something. Loss is not here to destroy you. It's here to teach you something, to push you on a path towards your highest truth, to living life with integrity, you know? So it's a healthy relationship with these concepts of death and disease that kind of push you to living life the proper way. Who here has a Mula position?
First of all, very sorry about your brother. I'm a Cancer ascendant. My moon is in Mula, together with Neptune in the sixth house.
Mula moon?
Yeah, and then K2 is in the 4th with Pluto.
You know, the 6th house is Vikriti. It's the first 3 stages of disease in Ayurveda. So it will, and it aspects your 12th. So like, you know, it's in a very strong position to activate these energies in your chart, you know. But the Mula moon position, that the disease that will come into your life when you're not in right alignment with the priorities, it's much more mental than physical, right? I mean, they say that all disease starts in the mind, you know? But yeah, like the universe will have a way of showing you that you're living life in alignment with the right priorities because you'll experience mental peace, right? As soon as you become anxious or depressed, you might think, oh, it's like something random, like mental health or whatever, like something chemical, but it's just your priorities are off. You know, it's like, oh, re-regulate, you know, and try to think, oh, like what am I focusing on that I really shouldn't be? And then put energy towards like focusing on the thing that you feel like really matters. And I bet like you experience like a great relief. Purvashada, 13.2 to 26.4 Sagittarius, Venus, Varuna, and the fan. The early conqueror, the quick defeater, right? You know, the freedom fighter, the spiritual warrior, right? You know, Purvashada, the early conqueror, right, is this energy of, I want to accomplish something, I want to go towards it, and I'm on my way towards it, right? So you get to the peak of this first mountain, right? You're at the peak of the first mountain, and you're like, this summit is awesome, right? I'm loving this. And then you go down the mountain. But guess what? If you stayed up on that mountain and looked further, guess what? You'd see another higher mountain behind it, right? There's this, the early conqueror, right, is like, oh, I'm at the top of the first mountain, I'm good. But the question is, what's the next peak, right? They become satisfied. You know, we looked at an energy where it was like the little victories and you'll never get to the big ones. This one is quite contrary to that. It's that you become very okay with the little victories and you don't reach for the highest peak, right? This is a complacent nakshatra. My ex-wife, she had this position in her chart. She was a very talented bassist, right? And there was this incredible bassist named Victor Wooten, and she was like on tour with him, like with this whole future to like become like this like famous bassist. She played one show with him and she was like, I'm done playing music, right? It's like, oh, I got a little bit of it and I'm good, you know? So the real energy here is the A-dharma is to be complacent with like just the most diet, like mild version of success, right? To say, oh, you know, whatever level I experience, you have to keep fighting, keep pushing till you get to the highest peak of the mountain, because from there, the summit is really beautiful compared to just the first mountain. And I like to call it, instead of the early conqueror, the unconquerable. You can't be conquered. The only thing, you're your own worst enemy is the dharma of this nakshatra, right? You're your own worst enemy is like, you know, you don't believe in yourself, right? Unconquerable, you know, sky's the limit. There's so much to accomplish here. You know, this is a strong freedom fighter energy, and the dharma of it is to fight for a divine cause, right? To fight for truth, to fight for satya. You know, this nakshatra, they hate injustice. They hate immorality. You know, they hate to see people disrespected, you know? So there's a very strong idea of, oh my God, there's so many causes I can fight for, right? And part of the A Dharma is that there's so many causes to fight for that they don't pick any of them. They're like, there's too many things to fight for, I'm just not gonna, right? There's that energy here, I'm not gonna. And then the other thing is that they will often fight for causes that they can't be won, right? They say, pick your battles wisely, right? So that's the Dharma, right? There's so many battles to fight. There's so much injustice going on in the world, but fighting for something that can't be won is pointless. What a waste of energy, right? You know, there's a little rant here. You know, like Selassie, who's this great emperor of Ethiopia, and you know, very powerful spiritual figure, and you know, he used to say that he didn't believe in protesting, right? Because protesting, it doesn't accomplish anything. It just makes you feel validated in your beliefs. The idea is that, do you want to like protest something with like signs, you know, or you actually want to like make a difference? So the real energy is, you know, there's so many battles to fight, there's so many injustices going on, but there's ways of going about fighting for those things that can actually make a difference, right? It's like there's all sorts of wars going on, and it's like you could like protest the wars, or you could like go and like feed people that are affected by the wars, or like refugees, right? There's a big difference. One is you're hearing yourself out loud, and the other one is you're actually impacting people. So there's this very strong like dharma to fight for what's right and to actually make an impact on positive people, to bring justice where there is injustice. But there has to be a strong energy to like pick the battles that can actually be fought for and won. Who here has a Purvashada position?
I have my moon there. In my younger years, I was a vegan activist. Instead of astrology club, it was veganism club. Yeah, and it took me a while to see that, like, to fight darkness like that and always be meditating on darkness, it started to arise within me, and I felt, by the end of that journey, just filled with hate myself, which was the very thing that I felt opposed to in the beginning.
Which house and planet is Purvashada?
It's my moon in the third.
It's your moon in the third. So yeah, like as you grow and evolve, you'll like really make a difference with the fights that you're, you know, fighting for, you know? And it is a communication or expression house. So it is more complicated in your place because you are supposed to fight with words, right? But like, the thing about that would be is that like the moon in that position, it wants to influence other people's minds, right? When someone's protesting, they're just with all the other people that are protesting those same things. It's like preaching to the choir, right? But to actually like find where people are maybe in the gray area or open-minded, and to try to like, you know, strongly like, you know, like express your truth to maybe open their minds, a lot of change can happen in that type of, you know, situation, you know? And if once you start making changes in that area, don't give up, just keep going, you know? Uttarashada. This is a Kas Nakshatra, 26.4 Sag to 10 Cap. Sun, the Vishvadevas in the tusk, right? So this is another one of these like perfection nakshatras, right? This is the final destination, right? It is the Dharma. This is like lofty stuff with this nakshatra. The Dharma of this is to be virtuous, right? So the A Dharma is to be double down on your flaws, right? I mean, we're human beings, we have flaws. It's part of being human. But the A Dharma here is saying, you know what, like, this is just who I am and I'm going to be this way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm rude, I'm mean, I'm selfish. And it's like, okay, well, you know, what Dharma is in just saying I'm this way and not doing anything about it? You know, virtue is saying, you know what, like, I have these like lower human or animalistic qualities and I want to do something about them, right? So there's this is what I call the actualization nakshatra, to actualize yourself so that you can actually be what you can be. So you can actually be this, like, you know, virtuous energy, you know, and they do strive for perfection. So you have to conquer the things that are getting in the way of that, you know. There's a real, this is my weakness. I'm going to fight against it, right? Which means the A Dharma of this position is I don't want to look in the mirror, right? I don't want to look in the mirror at myself, right? I don't want to look in the mirror at myself and admit that there's anything wrong with me. I'm perfect the way I am, right? I mean, we say that sometimes in this, like, you know, spiritual stuff. I'm perfect the way I am, right? And it's like, there's always more room for growth. You know what I mean? Like, should we ever rest on our laurels when it comes to our spiritual potential? I don't think so. So it's this ability to look at ourselves in the mirror with courage and say, you know what, I am this way, I'm going to do something about it, right? I'm going to do something about these lower qualities. I'm going to work on myself. It's an upachaya nakshatra. It grows over time. It's about this transparency to look at ourselves. It's a commitment to self. How committed are you to your own actualization, right? It usually manifests through career, right? I've noticed a lot of times with this nakshatra is there is incredibly successful careers, right? Because there's a willingness to look at yourself so that you can manifest your potential, right? Obviously, it depends on the house, but I have that noted here. Career success is how this virtuous energy manifests. The universe will reward you through your good actions, through looking at yourself in the mirror with courage, so that you can have a positive impact on the world and people in it. You know, it's a humanitarian energy, right? When we already have worked on ourselves and have like healthy self-esteem, right? Not ego, not like foolish pride or anything like that. But when we have like healthy self-esteem, it allows us to say, you know what? I want to help other people. We want to pick them up. We want to give to them. We want to be service-oriented. We want to help other people with the self-esteem. So this is a very humanitarian position. It's like, oh, well, why would you have success in your career? So you can have other people be successful as well. You know, the Dharma of this position, it allows you to be successful at anything, right? So it doesn't, you know, people are like, get career readings, right? You know, D10 or whatever, and they're like, well, what's my career? You know, and it's like, it's usually not something so specific, right? It's much more like a realm of possibilities. But if like you have a strong uttarshada position, you could be successful at almost anything, right? The only thing that's getting in the way of that success is your healthy belief in yourself, your willingness to do the work. So the A Dharma is really this like kind of resting on your laurels, not being willing to look at yourself, you know, and the real higher side of it is, you know, this willingness to look at yourself and be willing to do the work to be the virtuous version of yourself, right? This kind of purity here. So who here has Uttarashad?
My son is in Uttarashad as well as My sun is in Uttarashad as well as Mercury and Venus. And here the sun is in the second house, Mercury's in the fourth house, and Venus is in the first house.
So which one's in Uttarashada, your sun?
Sun, Mercury, and Venus, all in Uttarashad.
Sun, Mercury, Venus, all in Uttarashada. So I mean, I'm going to try to pretend that I don't know you. There's so much potential in that position to be like extremely pure, right? There's so much potential to be like a holiness there, you know? But it's going to require you to really wrestle with your lower nature, you know? And to really be able to find the balance between, like, you know, being fair and kind to yourself in terms of like not beating up on yourself because you're not that holy, virtuous version of yourself yet. But at the same time, being willing to say that I still need to do the work so that I can get there. And this activation on the second house will bring you great wealth, material wealth, career success, right? So it's kind of like, and that makes sense, right? It's like wrestling with your lower nature, not letting it rule over you, and then a limitlessness to your career and your financial success as well. Shravana Nakshatra, 10 to 23.2 Capricorn. It is a moon, Vishnu, and the ear. You know. Shravana is about preservation. It's an Artha Nakshatra. It is about security. I say for Shravana, things only have their value in the security they provide. Right? It's all about seeking security. It's all about working towards security. It's like, how do I feel safe? Right? The illusion of this is that, oh, I need to feel safe and secure, so what can I do to give myself that safety and security? Like, how can I provide for myself? How can I find financial freedom? How can I take care of my family? Right? It's total confusion. God is the provider. Right? We don't provide, God provides. Right? And when we recognize that it's actually the universe and God that's providing, I call that like divine recognition, which is like this idea of, if we're trying to like wrestle to feel like safe and secure in our lives with this position, the A Dharma is going to take away that security, right? So the A Dharma of this position is saying, I'm the one that's providing, and I'm going to work as hard as possible to make sure that that happens for me and my family, right? When we recognize that God is the provider, and we recognize that, and we like thank God or our higher power of our understanding for providing, it becomes very abundant. Right? There's all of this abundance potential here when we finally take ourselves out of the situation or let God take the wheel. Right? We're not the one driving the car, right? There is a deep there's a deep dharmic path here to provide for others, right? These are the ones that provide, right? And in order to provide, you have to fulfill your needs, right? It's like, what do we have to offer if we don't feel like our needs are taken care of? So there's this balance of fulfilling your own needs versus providing for others, right? When we have this energy of, in Shravana position, of providing, we think, oh, because we're providing, this is what your needs are. Like, I'm providing for you, so you need to do this, right? we become critical, right? The real dharma of this nakshatra is, remember, it's the ear. It's to listen to what your needs are and what other people's needs are, right? It's the ability to listen. Shravan is to listen, right? So when we listen to other people's needs, we don't give them what we think they need. We give them what they really need. And a lot of times it's less material than you would expect, right? We think that, like, and it's not just about the like in all the Capricorn nakshatras, there is like a materialism, right? But it goes to a higher end, right? It's about the ability to provide is a blessing. You're not put in a position to provide because of anything other than that's the universe has blessed you to be able to take care of your family. And a lot of times they don't need just money, they need support. They need empowerment. They need encouragement. They need to feel cared for. They need to feel supported. And of course, if you're like paying for your child's education or whatever, that's one way of showing it. But it's like, it's more about like whatever you choose to learn. If I'm paying for your college, okay, my dad is this position, right? I hope he's not watching this, right? My dad is this position, and he has actually 6 planets here in his second house, right? And he's the provider, right? He pays for everyone, for everything, and, And my little sister, she she wanted to go to college at this, all these different schools, and my dad says, if I'm paying for college, you're going to this school. And you're studying this thing, right? She didn't want to study that. She didn't want to go to that school, right? It's like saying, oh, because I'm taking care of you, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, right? That's the A Dharma. The real Dharma is, I'm helping support you, and I don't need anything. Because it's a blessing to even have that opportunity. And it's not me, it's God that gave me the opportunity to take care of you. So it's, regardless of if it's a good or bad position or how evolved it is, there's usually this like caretaking energy, right? That's the moon's influence on it. But it's really about kind of like really listening to people and what they want and what their needs are and taking care of them in that way, which is instead of what you think is best for them. Sorry, Dad.
He's changed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is that because this is a real dharma of a misbalance between balancing materialism and quality time. Right? So there's this energy of, I need to work hard and I need to work I need to focus as much as possible on, my career and providing and doing what it takes to be successful in all of these things. And in the process, you lose quality time with the people you love. You actually lose quality time with the people you're providing for, right? You're like, oh, I'm taking care of these people when really they would way better benefit from just spending the day with you than you working like a slave for your job, right? So there is this real dharmic vibration of balancing the material commitment. There is a dharma to be successful, work hard, provide, right? But it's not at the compromise of quality time with the people you're providing for. Then what's the point? Then it's all you're leaving them is money. So, so it's a real preservation energy, but what you're really preserving is other people's joy, right? You're really helping preserve other people's joy. That when you take care of someone, when you support and empower them, you're helping give them a space to be joy, to be joyful. You know what I mean? But when you're saying, oh, well, because I'm doing this thing for you, I need you to do this and this, you steal their joy. You know? All right, who has Shravana? Okay. Will you have a virtual Shravana or no? Yeah, okay. Let's go virtual.
Okay, Erica has Venus and Jupiter and Shravana in the 6th house.
Venus and Jupiter in Shravana. Oh, well, Jupiter in Shravana is Nietzsche, very close to Nietzsche. And then, what was the other one?
Venus.
And Venus is good in Shravana. You know, there's a natural energy of that 6th house position because that's like work, right? There's the work part of it and it's a service position. And so there is this very strong like workhorse energy, and it's a natural position for anything. Shravana would be the 6th house, right? I mean, I like that position for the 6th house because it will create someone who works hard. That's the kind of employee anyone would want, right? Like the volunteers here. I'm sure they have good Shravana positions, Dr. D. But you know, the Jupiter energy there is Nietzsche, it's debilitated, right? So it's creating this energy where it's like, I'm working hard and I'm doing these things, but that's going to create disease in these first 3 stages. So I feel that there is this burnout, you know, this push and shove like burnout situation in this position where the person, you know, the Jupiter in the 6th house there, it creates prajnaparada, the crimes against wisdom, the number 1 cause of disease in Ayurveda, right? We know something is not good for us, but because we feel we should do it because it's the right thing to do, we think that, we tell ourselves that, and it ends up creating like long-term like negative like health effects or something like this. So the person really has to listen to their inner truth there and really kind of find that balance of self-care and commitment to self to kind of ensure that they have longevity. Dhanista, 23.2 Capricorn is 6.4 Aquarius, Mars, the Vasus, and the drum. Dhanista, the wealthy one. You know, it's like the Dharma of Dhanista is to appreciate what you have. And it's one of the strongest nakshatras for prosperity, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many millionaires I know with a strong Dhanista position, right? They have like all of these incredible things that give them wealth, right? Now, of course, there's the material side of wealth, but then there's also wealth in terms of, you know, the people in your life, having a nice family, having a nice friends, having a, you know, being born in a safe country, living in a safe country. All these things are wealthy, right? And when we have a dharma of wealth, or we're given something, we have a responsibility to share it. You know, the dharma of Dhanista is to share what you have. You know, there's this interesting study that I read, and it shows that actually people that are considered poor, which the article was saying if you make less than $60,000 a year, are inherently more generous than people that make $200,000 or more. right? It's getting at the root of this kind of energy, which is when we experience abundance, we think that, oh, we work so hard for it, we deserve it, right? But that's the A dharma of this position. Anything that you're given in life as a blessing of abundance is meant to be shared, right? It's like some millionaires and billionaires have it, right? They get rich and then they become very philanthropic, very humanitarian. They start service organizations. Excuse me. Sanjay, good chai. So, it's all about the gift that you're given and sharing it. And whatever God has blessed you with, whether it's money, whether it's family, whether it's freedom, you have to give what God has given you. You have to give it back, right? Pass it along, right? Keep the good energy going, right? All sorts of things in life have this energy of once we have it, we have to share it, right? You have someone who's an atheist, right? They're, a godless heathen, right? They don't believe in anything, and they just, whenever someone brings up God, they roll their eyes, and then they have this spiritual experience, right? And they're waking up to faith in God, right? Well, then they have a responsibility to help waken up faith in other people, right? That's why missionary is a thing, right? When you have this, oh my God, I see the light of God, you feel this divine duty, I need to go spread the gospel, right? In addiction and alcoholism, once you're given the gift of sobriety, they say that you can only keep what you have by giving it away. So that's why once you become sober, you have a responsibility to help other people who are attempting to get sober to stay sober. It's a responsibility. If you don't help other people that are losing the battle trying to stay sober, guess what? You'll use. You will drink again. It's that simple. If you're born in a state of poverty and you go from rags to riches, right? You all of a sudden have this abundance and this prosperity. It's not like you deserve to be patted on the back because you're giving $20 donation to something. No, you have a divine responsibility to help other people get from rags to riches. You got to give other people opportunities for prosperity and abundance. So the real Dharma is to not be greedy with what you have here, but to share it. To share it as much as possible. We only preserve the things because the things that we get in life, we only get them because God has blessed us with them. So then if we don't share them, we don't deserve to keep them. It's very simple, right? So actually, Dhanishta people, they can go from rags to riches and then from riches to rags. They can go from, they go from atheists to believing in God, but then they don't share that. They don't create a spiritual community. So then when something bad happens in life, then they start cursing God again. They don't believe in them. But if they had the spiritual community, they would be held in that experience. So it's all about that the real safety comes from sharing what you've been given, right? Generosity. If there's one word to describe the adharmic energy of Dhanishta, it's greed. But greed is not just material, it's in terms of anything you've been given. And the real Dharma of Dhanishta is to be generous. Be generous. Homeless people, I have some friends that used to be homeless and stuff, and they talk about how you help take care of people, right? You give each other the shirt off your back when all you have is the shirt on your back, right? It's this energy of this divine generosity that keeps the wealth in this position ensured. Who has Dhanishta? I know you have one, Sanjay. That's obvious.
I just have a Dhanishta ascendant,
Okay.
just the ascendant, with the Lord in the sixth.
Okay. You have the Dhanishta ascendant with the Lord in the sixth. You know, I want to say that the Dhanishta ascendancy person, you know, the main thing there is that your character is the most wealthy thing, right? When you embrace your naturally giving nature, like this generosity, like this altruistic energy to you, it's going to unlock every other part of your chart. So the great thing about a Dhanishta ascendant is it can unlock wealth in every area of the chart, right? Just by being grateful, right? You said the sixth house.
I have Saturn in the sixth.
So there's a deposition in the sixth house. That deposition in the sixth house, it creates a certain dynamic where it limits your material prosperity, right? And it is creating an energy where it's going to emphasize this like generous idea, but you're really never going to have like the greatest capacity for like material generosity, you know? I mean, generosity there is really about your time, right? Saturn in the sixth, Saturn Mahakal, the Lord of Time. This is a great point. I'm happy you mentioned it. You know what the greatest gift anybody can give anybody is? Time. I'm going to have a little more of this chai. We're about to get into a Rahu Nakshatra, so I have to. Shatta Bishak, 6.4 to 20 Aquarius, Rahu, Varuna, 1,000 stars. This is my strongest nakshatra, Rahu ascending 15 degrees in Satabisha. You know, 100 medicines, 100 flowers. I also like calling it the 100 poisons, right? The Satabishak ascendant and or the Satabishak position, they actually have the longest lifespan, right? So they have the capacity to live the longest. It's like considered a karmic blessing, but the interesting thing is that many people think this nakshatra is cursed, right? Sanjay's like, that's cursed. Not this Sanjay Rath. And I was like, why? He's like, well, the energy of it as well is that because you have the capacity to live the longest, that if you're not in Dharma, you'll die like a very early, tragic death. So it's like a double-edged sword here. You know, the Dharma of this nakshatra is to wake up to the idea that nothing is inherently good or bad, right? Nothing is inherently, like, there's so many examples, right? And I want to go over some of them. But even before we look at specific dravya, substances, right? That everyone's unique constitution, we know in Ayurveda, is that everyone is made up of many gunas, vata, pitta, kapha, different ratios of different gunas and things like this. And so everyone has a unique constitution. And so certain foods, certain substances, certain environments are going to be beneficial or toxic, right? I mean, here we are in a arid, hot, dry environment, incredible for kapha, horrible for vata, right? So it's like it shows that it's very beneficial to one person, but very toxic to another. And that's life, right? Nothing is inherently toxic. The Dharma is to understand that one man's meat is another man's poison. But even after you've understand that, you have to understand, well, what's your meat and what's your poison? Everyone has unique, this life is substance. Food, all our senses, they experience different substances, and then they either give us a beneficial or a malefic effect, right? So the Dharma of Satyabhishak is to know thyself and know what your medicines are and know what your poisons are, right? I'll give you an example. It's like, we live in a world right now with like fentanyl, right? And it's like you don't even get heroin anymore. It's just fentanyl. And everyone's dying. It's an epidemic, right? When you have surgery, you want some morphine, trust me, right? Otherwise, you are going to be in excruciating pain and not be able to recover properly, right? That same thing that's causing an epidemic is also necessary, right? We live in a world of medical marijuana, right? People, or at least they call it medical. And it's on every street corner. I think I saw 3 driving around here in Sedona. And a lot of times with people's use of cannabis, it limits their success. It limits their potential. It prevents them from achieving all of the possibilities in their life that they could achieve. But if you have cancer and you're getting radiation, it's the only thing that will help you eat. Right? Medicine, everything has its time. Everything has its place. Everything has its season. Everything has its reason. It's like you have like all these like super skinny people with the Ozempic. You know what I mean? That are like already skinny and they want to lose like 10 more pounds. So then they're like starving themselves, which is really like toxic. You have people with diabetes and obesity that it's saving their lives, right? There's like people have peanut allergies, right? It's a really high source of protein, right? It can be very healthy, or it can be deadly to someone and cause them anaphylactic and they die there on the spot. So to understand that, the Dharma is to really know thyself here and to understand, okay, through my experience, and that's the challenge of this, it's Rahu, and the only way to know what your medicines or poisons are is to experiment, right? All the time people say, this is good for you, this is bad for you, but because the uniqueness of the constitution and the karmas, you have to experience it. The only way to experience it is to try it. And then, it doesn't, It's like no one even knows they have a peanut allergy till they eat a peanut and then go into full-blown anaphylaxis. Right? No one knows that, they're a drug addict till they try a drug and then they can't stop doing it. It's like you have to experience it the hard way in order to wake up to this idea of truly knowing thyself and knowing your unique constitution. People are also medicine or poison. Not just dravya, but also humans, right? And no one, although it's debatable, is inherently evil, right? It's all how it's like they may appear evil to you, but that's just based on your belief system. Because to someone else who has a different belief system, there's no one more pure, right? Like to other Nazis, Hitler was like the bomb, right? So it's all relative, you know what I mean? So to know your unique constitution is to say, okay, this is who I am, these are my beliefs and values and my ideals, and I don't want anyone in my life that isn't gonna at least support that in me, right? People are also poison when they devalue your belief system, right? So it's important to stick with the winners, right? And surround yourself with people that are going to validate and support your beliefs. But then there's also the other side of the spectrum where if you're really deluded and you surround yourself with other people that are deluded, you can all be in your delusion together, right? So there's a nuance here too. Two more things. I know this is we have time. Okay, so it's really about being present in the moment and restraining compulsion, right? Because as you learn, it's like someone when you're a kid says, don't touch the stove, and then you touch it and it's hot, right? Then you touch it again, it's hot. And how many times do you have to touch the stove before you realize it's going to keep burning you? And that's the real dharma of the Satyabhishak position, is like the real wise person only needs to touch the hot stove once before they realize they're getting burned. So that means when, the spiritual memory kicks in, when you go to touch that hot stove and you play the tape back and your spirit goes, oh yeah, I'm going to get burned. I probably shouldn't do that. But Rahu is here to experience things. So it's very likely to touch it again. It's very likely to keep touching it until you're like, I am like literally like my hand's falling off, right? So part of the evolution of this position is to restrain compulsion to a point where you can learn things quickly. People say this too, and it's part of Rahu, but people say, I have to learn things the hard way, right? That's nonsense, right? If you're wise, you can learn from other people's wisdom. You don't have to make constant mistakes, right? Other people make mistakes for us that we can learn from, right? So there's that part of it too, which is, we all have the freedom to make our own mistakes, but it's not a requirement. And then the last thing is that Varuna is the deliverer of instant karma, right? This is a very karmic, that's also why Sanjay says it's cursed, right? Because it's karmic, right? Because, these people have intense karma, or it's such a generalization. It's like the way that it is manifesting is that when you do something that's immoral or unethical, Varuna is a very harsh judge, right? But he wants us to learn the lesson. So what happens when we create these kind of when we create certain karmic actions, and I said this on the Thursday night world prediction panel, because Rahu is about to go in Satyabhishak, and this energy is going to be in the universe. So it's like when we commit negative actions, the karma comes into our life with Satyabhishak to show us that we've created negative karma, right? It comes instantly, right? It's like when someone is speeding and they get a ticket, right? They get pulled over for speeding. At the time, you think, oh my God, I have to pay this $300 fine. And it's like, you don't know the things that you were saved from. Maybe if that cop didn't pull over, you kill an entire family from reckless driving. What's more karma, speeding with a ticket or the death of a family? Right? So Varuna is really this blessing, right? And it might appear that, we have to deal with this difficult karma, but it's the universe. When you get that speeding ticket, you're going to be like, I probably shouldn't speed because I don't want to have to pay $300 again, right? And by the time you killed a family and are spending 30 years in jail, it's too late. So, and the one thing that is supposed to remediate the instant karma is remorse, right? This is a remorseful nakshatra, right? What creates the strongest karma is that when we do something that's wrong, we don't feel guilty, right? The sociopath, right? Who does things without any awareness that the things that that person is doing is creating karma. So the real Satyabhisha energy is, I have a conscience, right? And I can't do things without having a conscience, right? It's like the A Dharma is very like guiltless. And then the Dharma is like, I have a conscience and I can't do this because my conscience won't let me. And the conscience is your soul knowing that if it goes through with this, it's, this is embarrassing, but I, in my first marriage, I have a Rahu and Satyabhishak, and things weren't going well with my wife, and this girl that I used to date, invited me over to her place to have an affair. And I went over there, right? But my Rahu and Satyabhishak is so strong that as soon as I got there and we got close to making out or whatever, I had a panic attack. Right? My conscience was like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. It's going to create karma. So even though I got very close to it, the Rahu and Satyabhishak got activated and I couldn't follow through. And I still believe even wanting to do it created karma, but I avoided some more serious karma, I think. So who here has a Satyabhishak? Lindsay?
Eighth house moon.
You have more chai? Thank you, brother. 8th house, moon in Satyabhisha. I actually like the moon in Satyabhisha. This concept of the conscience is super heavy here, right? The moon in the 8th house in Rahu's Nakshatra is very mystical in terms of you having a heavy conscience. But the moon in the 8th house in that position, it could even feel like mental unbalance. So there's the real higher side of it is I feel something innate in me when I'm taking an action, and I know if this action that I'm taking is going to create negative karma. But then it's also like, am I hearing voices? Exactly, because the 8th house is vulnerability. So it creates a vulnerability where it's like, can I even be present in the moment to actually follow through on this action? Because I'm not sure. It's almost like an OCD type thing. But again, by finding the nuance there, you can release a huge mystical potential. There's a very occult, esoteric energy there. Good, we're in good time. We'll have time for some questions. Togi-ji gave everyone a cough, so I'm dealing with that. But I love him. He's strengthening my immune system. Purva Bhadrapada, 20 Aquarius to 3.2 Pisces. Jupiter, Ajakapada, the funeral, cot. Purva Bhadrapada, all of these nakshatras that we finish here are all about spiritual integration. They all are trying to manifest as we get towards Pisces, how, spirituality is manifesting in our lives. The Purva Bhadrapada is what I call the humble spiritual, right? They're the individual that is naturally connected to God, that doesn't have to prove it, right? That's not like going around and being like, so the A Dharma here is holier than thou. I'm spiritual, you're not, right? The higher side of the Dharma here is remaining humble and to integrate these kind of spiritual principles like humility, honesty, compassion and empathy, right? But as soon as you say, I am this thing, it makes you not the thing, right? I'm humble. Yeah, okay. I'm spiritual, right? As soon as you give yourself credit for that thing that you're working on, it removes the credit. So there's this really, mystical energy, which is like, okay, I need to just work on this thing and keep it low key, right? There's like this low key spiritual leader energy here, right? They don't have to prove it. There's, along those lines, there's this energy of them being connected to God. There's a very natural connection to the universe and God here. But in order to facilitate that, they have to realize they can't proclaim it. There's a few stories that I think have of Purva Bhadrapada people. Moses, right? God said to Moses, you're the one to free the people from Egypt. And Moses is like, you got the wrong guy. He's like, no, that's exactly why you're the right guy. He's like, I'm just a humble shepherd, right? It's this idea of when God shines the light on you, you feel undeserving. And that's what creates this real spiritual integrity in the person to be like, yeah, it's the chosen person is the one who doesn't think they're chosen. Selassie, he was worshipped in Jamaica and Africa, and people would go up to him and they'd worship him and they say, you're God, you're God, you're God. And he would ask him in an interview, they'd be like, what do you say to all these people that think you're God? And he's like, I'm definitely not. But who am I to disturb their beliefs? There's so much humility in that, right? That's honoring the connection to God, but it's not taking credit for it. It's like, I am not the guru. I am not the guru is what makes someone a real guru. It's all of this energy of just being able to be spiritual, be connected to God through prayer and meditation and sadhana, and just being a good, kind, thoughtful person that's in a moment-to-moment awareness without being like, worship me. Jekapada here is the lucky 1 foot, which is, this idea that, because one thing that I've noticed with the Purvabhadra positions is that they have disadvantages, right? The 1 foot, right? But why would it be called the lucky 1 foot? Because it's actually a blessing in disguise, right? Because whenever there's a disadvantage or a disable, it actually is creating a blessing in some other area. So this idea of the Dharma is to say, yes, there's a Purvabhadra position where it's like, I have certain challenges. Maybe you have a learning disability. Maybe you have a physical handicap. Maybe you don't have one of your parents, or you weren't raised with one of your parents. These are just some random examples. But every challenge comes with a gift. So when you recognize that limitation and you empower something within it to get the most out of it, that's exactly it. That's what makes someone spiritual, right? It's saying, okay, maybe the hand that I got dealt isn't the best hand, but I'm still going to play it and win. It's a gift, not a disability, right? It's whatever kind of handicap you have. If you're this position, trust me, when you harness it, it'll be a blessing. I had I have my Mars in this position in the 2nd house. And They told me I had a learning disability when I was 6 or 7 years old. I had to have a laptop in school from first grade. And they said I had ADD. So at lunch, the nurse would come give me Ritalin and Adderall. I started having to take it at 6 years old. You know? And the reason they did that is because when it came time, we would go out for recess, you know, in kindergarten, and I wouldn't want to come in. I was like, I'm not coming in. I'm staying on the playground. Right? I was like, I do not want to learn this nonsense. You know, I was told my whole life I had a learning disability. You know, that on standardized testing and everything, I did very poorly, you know, SATs and written exams, and I just, you know, it was a difficult time, you know. I chose, when I got to college, I was able to choose my major. And I did a double major, one in philosophy and one in hospitality, and I took metaphysics, right? And I got the highest score a student ever got in that class in the teacher's 17-year history at Drexel, right? I didn't do any notes, right? The thing that everyone told me my whole life was disability, when I chose to study philosophy and Jyotish, turned out to be a fantastic gift, right? So it's all about, don't let people tell you that this thing is a flaw, right? You know, it's about utilizing it and understanding that there's some reason, there's some karmic reason that that's the way that things are. So they're the very holy, the very humble guru, is how I would describe the Dharma of the Purva Bhadrapada. Who has a Purva position?
I have my moon in this Nakshatra, 28 degrees of Aquarius in the 4th house.
The moon in the 4th house here.
Yes.
Oh, moon. It's a pretty good position. Is it on the Aquarius or Pisces side?
It's 28 Aquarius.
Oh, it's Aquarius. And where's your Jupiter?
My Jupiter is in Chitra, in the 11th house.
Okay. So there's a very natural, divine feminine energy there. When I see that, I'm like Ma, right? But I mean, I've spent time with you. You're not like really throwing out like this heavy, like divine feminine, like guru energy. But now that you've told me that, I know it, right? It's this energy of unconditional love. It's this energy of devotion to anyone, really, that is willing to be open to what you have to offer, you know? And I would just say that in that 4th house, it's like that disability energy is going to create a lot of intense family karma for you, where you feel like your family has disabilities or whatever, and where you feel disadvantaged in the family picture, and but it actually is creating a hyper closeness where they're going to be more receptive to what you have to offer at a certain point.
Thank you. I just got back from being with them, and you're right on. So thank you so much.
Cool. Uttarbhadra, Saturn, Ahir water snake. So this is the cosmic consciousness, the Kundalini awakening energy, right? This is actually very different than Purva, right? Because they have a dharma to express being spiritual, right? They are supposed to be looked at as spiritual, right? Which means they usually have some type of spiritual role. The only way to show spirituality is through discipline. So the A Dharma of this position is someone who says they're whatever, spiritual, holy, virtuous, and then there's like no proof in the pudding, right? The real Dharma of this position is someone who is extremely disciplined in their spiritual practice. You know, they would have in Ayurveda what's called a strong dinacharya, which is you wake up at the same time of day every day, you fall asleep at the same time of day, you eat your meals in a 1 hour window at the same time every day, you take your herbs every morning, you do your abhyanga at night. This is how you're shown to actually be an Ayurvedic, like someone who's living that lifestyle, right? It's the discipline, what you bring to your spiritual, and spiritual is misunderstood here. Spirituality is like whatever you do in your life, that you do it right, right? It's not that you're like in a temple, like, praying and doing tapas and like, fasting or whatever. But it's really about that whatever you do it consistently. You do it in a disciplined way. You do it in a way that it can be admired and respected by others. It's about putting in the footwork to actually have a reputation. They have a service orientation here, because when you become disciplined, you usually have some type of duty to serve a spiritual cause, right? I mean, this is the person that is going to express spirituality. So, I mean, you get a lot of things in here, like the preacher, the priest, right? I'm sure Panditji has a nice position here, right? It's the person that is actually like, he does like puja like 3 days a week. So of course he's the right person to do puja, right? But you wouldn't go and ask some random person to do a puja that doesn't have that experience with it. It's the experience which creates that quality. As I mentioned, this is a Kundalini awakening nakshatra, which when the Kundalini attempts to awaken, but you're not disciplined, it causes a Kundalini disorder, right? This is, I'm having a spiritual experience, right? This is, I'm having a spiritual awakening, right? That's the Kundalini awakening. But if you didn't put the work in through sadhana, through a proper practice, to actually have something that could be understood to have a logical correlation to having that experience, it's a disorder, right? It's something where the Kundalini energy goes through the channels, and if the chakras aren't equally spinning all at the same rate, it causes one to overspin while the other one underspins, and it causes this Kundalini awakening experience. I knew this Ayurvedic practitioner once, and she was giving a massage to this guy, and he just starts twitching and shaking all over. And he's like, I'm having a Kundalini experience. That poor woman felt so uncomfortable. Some creep there freaking out on the table, saying he's having a Kundalini experience as soon as this woman puts her hands on him. There's no Uttarbhadrapada energy here. So sadhana dharma, dharma through a disciplined sadhana, is what's going to create, shows that you're grateful to God for being, life, right? We show our gratitude to God through our spiritual practice. This is saying, when we pray, we're saying, it's like, when we pray, we're saying, God, thank you, right? We're saying, I'm grateful, Here's the other thing that I like to say. The A Dharma here is that they're constantly looking for spiritually powerful experiences, when the Dharma is really to see the spiritual in the mundane, right? I call this seeing Shiva at the grocery store, right? It's easy to go to a puja or go to a temple or, go somewhere to an ashram and experience Shiva's grace, right? But how about when you're doing the dishes? Why is Saturn rectified through cleaning a toilet, right? Because you're embracing the divinity of that mundane experience by being disciplined with it, right? There's this discipline in the mundane and doing the things that no one wants to do that brings us closer to God. And so I would conclude this as being a very grounded, disciplined spirituality dharma. So who here has Uttarabhadra?
I have K2 in the 11th and Taurus rising.
K2 in the 11th in Uttar. That's very interesting. That kind of makes sense to me. The K2 in Uttar, because I look at this like for my soul cycle stuff for samskara. So the K2 in Uttar shows that you had like a past lifetime or many past lifetimes where you were like a very disciplined spiritual community member, right? Like seva oriented, right? Doing service, helping at the ashram, kind of taking people. That's your past life energy, right? So it's going to create a very strong energy of Rahu in the 5th house for you, where even though you kind of want to go in that direction, it's not going to allow it. You can go in that direction, but your life energy will not be there. You will have to be present with partners and children and, younger energies to kind of balance that out. So the last thing I want to say is that you already came into this lifetime very spiritually disciplined, right? But in this lifetime, it actually serves as a distraction, right? It actually wants you to kind of be more the mundane side of it. That is really it's not gonna come from being in an ashram, it's gonna come from serving your duty with your family.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I'm in the middle of my dasha, the K2 dasha right now. And that's it, those topics.
Cool. Okay, Revati. The end of Pisces, 16:4 to 30, Mercury, Pushan, and the fish. The perfection of wisdom. This is the perfection of wisdom, and it has a dharma to express. This is what I call practical spirituality, right? We learn all of these things, and some of the things that we learn spiritually are not practical, right? Like, like I was watching Charlotte's mantra suggestions during her poetry, and it's like 10,000 repetitions, right? And it's like, if you do 10,000 repetitions in a row, like it's possible, like you won't make it to work. You might urinate. Like what are you gonna do if you're sitting there for like 8 hours, right? So the dharma here is, if it's not practical, it's not spiritual, right? Things have to be practical to be spiritual, right? Yeah, everything is great, and Vamadeva said it too. I was like, I asked Vamadeva, it's like, why did they list all these things about a Jyotishi that we have to be like these perfect human beings? And he's like, it's just like to kind of push you in that direction, right? It's not necessarily that, I have to do 12,000 repetitions of this mantra. It's that like maybe 120 is a good start, right? It's the practicalness of spirituality, which is taking that knowledge and integrating it into a lifestyle that we can actually make sustainable. There is a very strong dharma of Revati Nakshatra, which is to speak or share our embodied truth, right? Because the embodiment of truth is its practical application. You know, this is a very strong wealth nakshatra. You know, a lot of times people that are very wealthy have strong revati positions. And what is better than silver and gold? Knowledge, right? Knowledge is better than silver and gold, right? Wealth is great, right? But you could have all the money in the world and not have a practical way of integrating it, and then it creates more suffering. Like I read a lot of these studies about like finances and economics. There was this one that said that people that make under 60 grand a year, like they can suffer emotionally as a result of not making enough. People who make 60 to 100 grand a year, it benefits their emotional state because they have like some level of financial freedom. And then people who make more than 120,000 a year, it doesn't really increase their happiness anymore. And then after 250,000 a year, it harms it. So the idea here is that it's like, yeah, wealth is great. It's not inherently evil, but having a practical application for that knowledge of how to live a proper life, how to live a practically good life in balance with everything, that is really the Dharma of this nakshatra, right? Wealth is great. What's the point if you don't know how to use it? You know, the yoga is to cease the fluctuations of the mind, Patanjali, right? The Dharma of this nakshatra is to cease the fluctuations of the mind, and yet it's so knowledge-oriented. So then how do we rectify that? The idea is that like we keep looking for knowledge, so because our brain is like a hungry stomach. It needs knowledge to feel full, right? But once we feed it, if you keep feeding it, I mean, you guys have been sitting in a Jyotish conference for 5 days. There comes a point where you can't take more information, right? You're like, I can't tell you how many times I talk to you, and you're like, my mind is ready to explode, right? And it's like, you can only digest so much information at once, right? It's going to take years to digest some of the wisdom that the faculty members have dropped over the course of this experience. So once we feed that knowledge in our consciousness, we have to let it digest. We have to cease the fluctuations of the mind to allow it to digest in our consciousness. That's the practical application of it. Knowledge is invaluable until you learn a technique here from a Jyotish, and then you're helping someone in a consultation. You remember that technique, you use it, and you help the client. Right? It's all just ethereal until then. You know, I had this experience with Camilla, one of my first conference here, and she taught me something, and then I still use it, like in all my consultations. Like it's just the Dharma of this nakshatra is he who knows everything knows nothing, right? The yearning for knowledge and feeling intellectually strong here is so strong that the A-dharma of it is, I think I know everything, right? Which really shows that you're just closed-minded and you know nothing at all. Because the most wise people are the ones that continue to learn. So learning is infinite. The Dharma of Revati Nakshatra is that learning is infinite. And then once you learn, you have a Dharma to share the knowledge, right? And that actually helps its integration. When we have knowledge and we share it and we teach it, it helps that information digest properly. And I want to do some questions, but the last thing I want to say here is that even after you've learned every single lesson in every single nakshatra, they all cycle again. So just because, you know, you went through a dasha or you went through a transit and these nakshatras were activated and these lessons were exposed to you and you learned some of them and you didn't learn some of them, if you didn't learn all of these lessons and you've already gone through a heavy activation of them, don't worry, you'll get another opportunity, probably in not very long, right? And if you have learned the lesson, like when I talk about this lesson for your nakshatra and you really feel like, yeah, I'm on this higher evolutionary end of it, the universe will bring that energy back and it will ask you, well, did you really learn it? Did you really learn it? Did you really learn it? Because here's another 30, 60, 90, 100 opportunities, right? The learning is infinite. The integration of these lessons is forever, right? I mean, I do, in theory, believe once a soul has learned and integrated on a master level every lesson that it's possible to learn, that it can go through Mahasamadhi. Have I met someone like this? No. Well, maybe my guru, but still, right? That's the journey of the nakshatras. We're all here in just like this cycle of like lessons that are constantly just repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating. And, the last thing I want to say about it is that, like, as a Jyotish, we're just here to help each other, right? We're just here to help each other in this crazy cosmic storm of infinite lessons that never ends, right? We're just here to hold each other as we walk through the fire, because it's not going anywhere. Any questions, anybody?
Could we take one from online audience?
Yeah.
So on Revati, Tatiana is asking, she has Revati moon in 11th house, conjunct Venus. What would be your input?
Revati, moon, Venus in the 11th, Revati.
Mm-hmm.
Moon, Venus. Oh, wow, that's a strong Venus. That's a strong Venus in the 11th house. They have like a very strong kind of responsibility to be an integral part of their community. They have a chance to really help the people in their community experience bliss and help integrate lessons and wisdom. And they have a beautiful, beautiful combination there. I don't really feel anything too difficult there. But what I would say about that Venus-Moon combination is that, the Venus-Moon, it can drain the ojas of the mind. It can reduce the immune system's capacity there. So even though they have like this beautiful part of the community, I would really encourage them to not isolate, but really kind of nourish themselves and balance that out by spending time alone. Like an independent sadhana versus communal prayer. I'll let you do the picking.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've given thought to this perhaps many times over the years, and I'm asking because I've had a similar experience. But when the woman gave you the Shakti, you passed out, could you maybe share with us what portion of your chart you now feel is most activated?
At that moment, what was happening is that Ketu was going over my natal moon Venus in the 9th. So from that perspective, she has already been my guru for many, many lifetimes. I had forgotten, I guess. And then she reminded me. Because it's a 9th house transit, With Ketu, it was like, oh, God. Yeah, it like brought it right back. It's like, okay, here we go again. Here we go. I have a funny story with her that I like to share because I like just talking about her, And my first wife, I asked her to marry us, and she usually says yes to everyone, right? But she can see into your karmas. So I asked Amma to marry us. I go to Washington, D.C., and I asked her to marry us, right? And she's like, no, right? And I just was like, well, maybe she's in a bad mood, So then I go to New York 3 weeks later, right? And I was like, Amma, like, will you marry us? Like, you embarrassed me. Like, come on, you know? And she was like, she whispers to one of her, swamis, who whispers to me, and he goes, if you really want to, but I don't think it's a good idea. And then at our actual wedding ceremony, I'm standing there waiting to get married, and she looks at me and she rolls her eyes. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about the activation? You've mentioned that a few times. So is it the dasha? Is it the planets going over? Like, how would you?
Yeah, so there's two forms of karma phalam I look for activation. One is dasha activation, but the strongest activation is when dasha and gochar are both active, which is transit. So let's say you're in Shani dasha right now. What's that? Okay, so you're in Sun dasha, right? And your sun is in which nakshatra?
In Revati.
Revati, right? So Saturn's on its way, right? Saturn's going to hit your sun like pretty soon. You probably feel it already.
He's working on Mercury and Saturn right now, but yeah.
Yeah, like when Saturn will get to Revati and then it'll be direct on your sun. That's a huge karma phalam, right? There's a huge opportunity, right? Because
But I'll be out of sun by then. But, so would it be?
oh, you'll be out of sun.
Yeah, starting moon.
So it's kind of like flirting with the possibility of you, but it's the fact that it's about to leave. It's like kind of saying, you're not quite ready.
So if it's the dasha, it's a planet is going over your dasha planet.
Yeah.
And then so would it be activating anything? Is there any other? So it doesn't have to be the dasha planet?
No, it can be any major transit.
Okay. Any of the planets going over?
Like you get little opportunities too, right? The moon moves so quick, right? I mean, I don't know the last time the moon was in Pisces. It wasn't very long ago. That was a karma phalam. It's not a strong one, but it's one that gives you an opportunity. When that moon starts to hit your sun, when that new moon happened on, Pisces or whatever during this dasha, it was like, here's another chance to learn this lesson. It's manifesting its opportunity. It's like an opportunity. It's like a window. But the planets that move slower, like Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, it's a much longer opportunity. And then you look for the layering too, where it's like, okay, well, not only is that major transit happening, but the dasha is also supporting it, right? So it's kind of, you just look for them, but the most layering, for the most nakshatra karma phalam is when the dasha and the transit are happening at the same time on one of your, prominent nakshatra positions.
Would it have to be the dasha or the nakshatra lord or the planet for it to be super activated?
No, because the planets are just there to say, oh, this is how we want to teach. I'm going to try to teach you the nakshatras lesson in a Saturnian way, in a Martian way, in a solar way. But at the end of the day, the whole universe is conspiring for your happiness. It's a constant thing. You know what I mean? It's just the different planets have a different way of trying to teach you the lesson. And that's where planetary friendships and enemies come into place, because it's like, this planet has a way of teaching you this way, and this planet has a way of teaching you that way. And they might be teaching the same lesson, right? Because let's say it's Venus and Jupiter in Revati, right? By transit. But Venus and Jupiter don't teach at all similarly, right? One is the Guru Deva, the other is the Asurya Guru. It's going to be like kind of creating some confusion as to how you're supposed to be learning the lesson.
Can you speak to hemmed nakshatras or a hemmed nakshatra?
Yeah.
And if there's any, one if it's powerful or less powerful,
You mean when two planets are squeezing another planet in, or two planetary positions are squeezing a nakshatra?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Eve does that a lot. So if you think of like the karma Phalam, right? That's like squeezing the juice of the fruit. So as the planets start hemming a nakshatra, it's causing the lessons of the nakshatra, which is being hemmed, to fruit, right? If it's not a natal position, like it's just by transit, do you know what I mean? Then you're unlikely to learn it, right? If it's a natal position that's being hemmed, there's this huge, it's almost like there's no better opportunity. You know, like let's say you have Venus in Revati, right? And then you have Saturn in Purva Bhadrapada. It's hemming Uttar Bhadrapada. So then there's this, if you have a planet in Uttar Bhadrapada, there's this huge opportunity to actually like learn the lesson.
So you're saying then that hemmed nakshatra only gets activated during transits? Is that?
Well, yeah, but the
Or is it
lesson would be there the entirety of the lifetime because it's hemmed if like in a natal birth chart.
But then the transit really brings that lesson to the.
Correct. It would just be dormant.
I see. Thank you.
What do you think about Mars and Saturn conjunction in 9th house in Chattabisha?
Mars, Saturn, Satabishak, 9th house. You know, I would say that the way that your spiritual, is that your position? Yeah. I would say that the way your spirituality is going to unfold, like your spiritual evolution, it's very like slow, right? And because of Mars being there, you wish it weren't. But once you embrace that, right, and understand that there's no rush, right? Because even after we die, we're reincarnated, right? Then you'll enjoy it, right? You'll enjoy the journey of it. But the Sattva Bishak part of it, it would say that the medicine poison thing, there are certain, and I remember your Jupiter retrograde thing, there are certain parts of like religion and spiritual things that are actually like going to set you back, right? So you have to understand what those kind of poisons are in your spiritual path. Possibly gurus too, like, you see them really, like you want to believe in the guru, but there will be a lesson there of like fraudulent gurus and all of this.
So, Shaniti, this was amazing information, super practical. What I would like to ask you is, when you're looking into Mahadasanta Dasa system, so let's say someone has Jupiter retrograded in the 6th under Ardra Nakshatra. So what type of remedies, let's say mantra remedies, should we prescribe for this person? Is it a Guru remedy? Is it a Mercury remedy because it's sitting in Gemini? Is it a Rudra remedy? Is it a Rahu remedy? How do we go about really pinpointing? Or is it like the Pada Lord?
Great question. Dr. Harness and I are going to be covering this at our Nakshatra Summit next spring. But I'm lecturing in London next week on that, which is the remedies associated with each nakshatra. This was more focused on like the lessons and stuff, and all of it's going to be put into my book. So like your question is like the right question to ask, because it's like, okay, what's all this situation? But like, what's the point if you can't do anything about it? And there's all sorts of remedies like mantra. There's all sorts of remedies like panchakarma, specific panchakarmas, and like Ayurvedic herbs. There's also like practical remedies I'm coming up with. So for the Jupiter retrograde in the 6th house in which nakshatra?
Ardra.
Ardra,
Pada 2.
So like the ancient remedy would be to do like a puja to Rudra, right? Like I feel like, or just like Rudra worship, Rudra mantra, you know? Sounds scary, right? Yeah, that sounds like fun. And then the Ardra, the practical remedy for that sixth house position would be something along the lines of having a very simple diet, right? Having a very like simple diet. That would be like the remedy that I would come up there. Because that sixth house, it's gonna, when you add certain things, it's gonna complicate that energy in that house. I would try to go on like a khichdi fast.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you.
Dayananda, when's your class? 5? Okay, sorry. I want to get him ready for his class, right? Yeah. We'll do one more question.
Thank you so much, Sanati. What an amazing lecture. I just wanted to, maybe you can help me understand my Rahu in 10th house in Ashwini retrograde, and then K2 and 4th retrograde in Swati.
Wait, Rahu and Ashwini in the 10th house?
Yeah.
Rahu's always retrograde.
Oh.
But Rahu and Ashwini in the 10th. Well, okay, so I'd actually have lectured on this before, but Rahu in a K2 Nakshatra is really significant, right? Because it actually shows that you've mastered something in a past lifetime that you're repeating. From my perspective, the Rahu and Ashwini energy, it's like you're finishing something that you already started, right? So however your career is supposed to manifest, and it could manifest in a lot of different ways. Nothing is fixed, right? So it could manifest as like a life coach, someone who empowers people, as a Jyotish, as a lifestyle consultant, as a health coach, nutritionist. But whatever you're doing, you're trying to help, through your work, keep people humble and increase their lifespan. Yeah. Okay, I'll do a quick closing mantra. Sahana bhavatu, sahana bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, teyas vinavaditamastu, ma vidvashavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you so much, Shanati. That was awesome. That was really great. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.